Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at, or at least I'm going to be doing, the ultimate guide for Origin Form Palkia VSTAR Inteleon. I think I have played this deck enough, I feel comfortable enough with the deck and this list that I can do a video on it explaining just the matchups, how to play the deck in general, and just some tips and things like that. So if you're looking to play Palkia, you're looking to play, or how to beat Palkia, this video will be helpful for you. I've written out an entire Google Doc here of points I want to talk about that I will be reading off of. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get started. Starting off with Chapter 1, which is the first turn of the game. Your first turn with Palkia is, like most decks, it's pretty important. And there are two main routes you want to go, depending on if you go first or second, and depending on the quality of your hand, of course. If you go first, like most Inteleon decks, generally speaking, you want to kick down as many Stalls as possible, and not leave yourself with like a dead hand with like no Strizal either. So like don't like level ball for a Sobble. Like if you already have two Sobbles, don't level ball for a third Sobble, and then you have no Strizal. Like that's just like not good playing. If you do that, I'm sorry, that's just not good playing. But of course, you also need to get a Palkia V as well. And this all changes against Mew and what list of Mew you're up against. That will be in the matchup section of this video. And if you go second, your deal turn 1 is to get out 2 Palkia Vs. Sometimes you have to compromise and just get 1 Palkia V. In some matchups, that's fine. Like Arceus Inteleon usually doesn't KO Vs turn 2, but Mew does. So getting 2 Palkia out versus Mew is very, very important. And then Keep Calling also is pretty good turn 1 if you go second. And the best way to pull this off is with Irida, of course, because Irida can get a VIP pass for the double Palkia or Capacious Bucket to get the Keep Calling. And the Irida is just really good turn 1 going second to pull off both of those goals. And yeah, that's just chapter 1. It's pretty short. The longest chapter is the matchup second. And chapter 2 is my general tips. And my number one tip for people that are just starting out playing Palkia or just looking to play Palkia better. Do not just use Star Portal because you can. Like if you have 1 Water Energy in your discard pile, and you're like, well, I might as well do this now. No, do not do that. Play out the game in your mind and think like, for example, what turn do I need to Roxanne this game? Would I also need to Melanie that turn if I Star Portal now? Or should I Melanie to save my Star Portal for like the turn I Roxanne? Simple, like logical questions like that. And then another tip is to manage your resources. It's obviously important with like any deck, but Palkia even more so because you have like pretty limited energy. Like my list has 7 energy and limited Pokemon as well. Like people will know that you have limited Pokemon and try to pressure it with Avery. Nessa lets you be more flexible with both of the resources, and Melanie helps you get back water energy as well. So Pokemon is kind of the big one you have to manage. Like, do I have enough Pokemon? Should I bench this Pokemon because I might just lose it if my opponent Avery's, things like that. My final big tip, I actually didn't learn myself. I heard it and adopted it during Mellow Magikarp's Lake of Rage podcast, which both Nathaniel Kaplan and Noah Yoshida discussed their out-of-the-box Palkia list. They both played NAIC, and the tip was that using your Star Portal to power up a Raining Greninja is not as good as it looks. And unless you're winning the game, like for example, KOing your opponent's only 2 Sobbles, that's pretty good. It's not really usually worth it to Moonlight Shuriken. There are some matchups, of course, that is crucial in and is good in, but for the most part against Inteleon decks, it's not going to be great to like Raining Greninja, a Sobble, and a attacker, as that really sets you up prone to Roxanne. And Roxanne is something you have to keep in mind with Palkia. And then chapter 3, which is the matchup section. This is going to be the longest section, and part of the part that many people came here for, the matchups. I'll start with the most popular decks and work my way down. Mainly, I don't know, I've had Flying Pikachu at second to last, which is probably not right, but it is what it is. So, starting off with the mirror, which is a 50-50. Unfortunately, like most mirrors do, the Palkia mirror can sometimes like really heavily rely on who wins the coin flip, because the player who goes first has a huge upper hand because they can pretty much like easily boss your Palkia V turn 2 and start the game with a just gigantic lead. Other than this turn 1, there's something about the mirror that I think all players should do and that most Palkia players like don't do. Don't be the one to put all 5 bench Pokemon to play first. if you put a lot of Pokemon to play, you give your opponent control over their own damage. And you do not want to give your opponent control over their own damage. You want to limit your bench to try and force your opponent to go up high, or to put a lot of Pokemon on their bench so that they can do a lot of damage. And then you just return with putting a lot of Pokemon on your bench, and then you're hitting for the max 260. So don't be the first one to bench all 5 Pokemon. It's a really bad idea, I promise. And you do not want to do this because the mirror past turn 1 and turn 2 is all about who can 1-hit KO a Palkia VSTAR and then not get 1-hit KO'd in return. Like, that is, if you can manage to 1-hit KO an opponent's Palkia VSTAR with like quick shootings and choice belt and stuff, and then not get 1-hit KO back, you're in a really, really good spot. And by putting lots of Pokemon in play, you let your opponent 1-hit KO you first, and that's not good. It's also worth noting that quick shooting is very, very good in the mirror. Something that you need to keep in mind and not forget is an option for your opponent and for you. Quick shooting is essentially +1 Pokemon on your opponent's bench every single turn. And in the mirror, where both players are trying to limit their bench to the best of their abilities, that's really, really good. Next, we have Reggies Inteleon, which I think is a 40-60 matchup, which is slightly unfavored. But the main thing you have to remember about the Reggies Inteleon matchup is that your opponent is playing a very slow deck that aims to like tempo you out of the game with Sharon's Care. So don't rush too much to get an early KO on an Arceus V. This often comes at the cost of your board, which later comes with the cost of a dead hand off Roxanne. Knowing how good your board is versus Roxanne is super important. Setting up your board so it's powerful versus Roxanne is also really important with Palkia. Like having a Sobble and a Drizzile play at the later stages of the game is very, very good because that gives you the option to not only evolve into a Drizzile to get over Roxanne, but also into a Shady Dealings Inteleon. But most Arceus Inteleon players will keep a very, very small bench of just one Sobble / Drizzile / Inteleon, an Arceus V, and an Arceus VSTAR. This means that you will almost never be able to take 1-hit KO on Arceus VSTAR. If you're taking a 1-hit KO on Arceus VSTAR, your opponent is not a good Arceus player. You want to go very, very, your opponent wants to go very, very low with their bench to basically just do a 2-shot war, like because they're 2-shotting your Palkia and they're forcing you to 2-shot their Arceus, which they will try to win because they have Sharon's Care. Now take your time to develop a board that has a strong chance of coming back from Roxanne, like I noted earlier, and match your opponent's pace because you can take your time to set up your board because they're a very, very slow deck. You can match their pace too. One thing to note is that a Cheryl can be like really useful in this matchup because it allows you to match the tempo of their Sharon's Care for a single turn. You can kind of keep up with them because what they're trying to do is just do a giant 2-shot war that they will win because they have Sharon's Care. Now Mew Genesect, which I think is a 75-25 matchup, which is favored for Palkia. And I just want to quickly say, as of recently, Mew's been starting to fall off in online tournaments, but it's still a matchup that you should know really, really well, and a matchup that you will play against in online tournaments and just real life tournaments too. Luckily though, Mew it's really, really straightforward. So straightforward that even I can break it down into steps. I have it broken down into steps here. Step 1, hitting Mew VMAX for around 240 damage. If you don't have a full bench, they usually will have a full bench because they're not drawing maximum cards without a full bench. And they're not hitting their like giant 1-hit KO combos without a full bench. So you're usually hitting around for 240, maybe even the maximum 260. And then you can, step 2, make sure you have a Palkia VSTAR and a Palkia V in play this turn. Like the turn after you hit them with the 240. And then you Star Portal to a Radiant Greninja and Moonlight Shuriken. The Mew VMAX to knock it out, and a Meloetta at the same time. Now if they have Oricorio in play to prevent you from KOing the Meloetta with the Greninja, you can just boss the Oricorio and its weakness, and you can knock that out, as well as knocking out the VMAX. Now this is going to be a 4-prize turn. You're down to just 2 prizes at this point. Before your Greninja or anything else gets knocked out, they've only knocked out 1 Palkia at this point. Your opponent's going to be at 4 prizes. You're going to be at 2 prizes. Now, step 3. Now, a couple things that can happen here. If your opponent KOs the Greninja, you can either boss for game that turn on a Genesect, or you can Roxanne Path and hit their Mew VMAX. And at this point in the game, it should be near, if not literally impossible, for your opponent to 1-hit KO Palkia VSTAR, because they're down like a bunch of tablets and fusion energy from 1-hit KOing the Palkia VSTAR before. However, if they boss and KO your Palkia V instead of the Greninja that you just attacked with, what you can do is you can Roxanne Path and then attach return to your Palkia VSTAR and then pass with Palkia VSTAR active, which might seem risky, but once again, it's possible for them to want to kill your Palkia VSTAR. And then next turn, just turn attach again and boss for game. Roxanne Path is super strong versus Mew. It's the #1 thing you should be thinking about because it's an amazing comeback option in games that you think you lose versus Mew. You can win because Roxanne Path just shuts their deck down so much. And so one of the reasons why Mew has just kind of fallen off because a bunch of top decks right now play Roxanne Path. This is one of the few matchups that Greninja is an integral part of the game plan. Something else to note is that having a strong turn 1 is like really important versus Mew, as it is for most decks. If you start Palkia V and you win first, get another Palkia V. If you win second, get 2 Palkia V with the Battle VIP pass and keep calling to establish a strong board. Keep calling going second is something I always try to go for. It's just super good to just establish that strong board. Once again, strong board with Palkia V is really important in this meta because it's destroyed by Mew. It could be destroyed by Roxanne later in the game. You don't want to rush too much. You just have to remember Palkia is a better deck than most decks. It hits more damage. It's more consistent. It's just everything more better than other decks. So you just need to remember that I'm a better deck than other decks. I will just play the game well and actually set up, and I will win. Now the next matchup is Mewtwo v Union Stall, and I have this matchup as a 1090 for heavily unfavored. This matchup sucks. This matchup is super bad. I have it written. It's very difficult. I don't play any tech cards on my list for it, but possible techs you can include are Echoing Horn, Leon Mirror Candy, and another Quick Shooting are all pretty good. I haven't played this matchup too much, but if you want a much more in-depth look at the matchup, go listen to the Lake of Rage episode with Nathaniel Kaplan and Noah Yoshida that I mentioned earlier. That episode is really good. Go listen to it if you haven't. Next, we have Turbo Dialga, which I have as a 70-30 favored for us. The #1 thing that Turbo Dialga does not want to have happen is their Dialga to get 1 KO'd the turn that they evolved to use Star Chronos. That's like their nightmare because they just spent so much time using all their Metal Saucers to develop this big Dialga V-Star. But Palkia is really good at doing just that, just KOing it the first turn that they get, because Dialga often fills their bench with Crobats, Mews, Greninja, and Pumpkaboo to counter your path. Dialga can't really play around your damage output. If they're not benching Crobats and Mews, they're not playing the game. They're not setting up. So as long as you set up 2 Palkia V-Star as soon as possible, so they have 2 prizers in play that they can easily Star Chronos, the matchup is pretty straightforward. However, you can't deny the sheer power and ability to pop off that their deck has, so constantly keep that in mind. That will this make me really vulnerable to like a boss Star Chronos and then 1 KO in a Palkia? You always have to keep that in mind, and that's why it's not like totally impossible for them to win. Next, we have Lunatone, Solrock, or Luna Rock, which I have as a 75-25 very favored matchup for Palkia. Luna Rock has one giant weakness, and it's that it sucks at 1 KOing. Like, it's really bad at it. It takes a really long time to 1 KO a Pokemon V-Star. This is the caveat that you could take advantage of and make Cheryl like really good in this matchup, because you can do you're going to hit me for not a knockup because Lunatone once again sucks at 1 KOing, and you're just going to Cheryl Star Portal right back onto your Palkia. And also because Greninja simply existing in your deck, Luna Rock has to have Mana Fiend play, which is 1 less spot for Solrock, which makes it even harder for them to 1 KO you. And Roxanne Path is also very good at preventing 1 KOs later in the game as well, because you might say, well, why Path? They don't have any Roblox, but they have Greninja to draw out of the Roxanne. As long as you attack every turn and use Star Portal, at the correct time, which is almost always in combination with Cheryl. If they have Mana Fiend play, this matchup is really good. So yeah, just attack every turn and do that Cheryl Star Portal combo. The matchup's pretty good. Next, I have Arceus Flying Pikachu here, which I have two percentages. I have 40-60 unfavored for Palkia if they set up, and 60-40 favored for Palkia if they don't set up by turn 2. Now, you might be wondering about that, and I've noticed as I played against it more that Azul's Arc Pika list, or just like Arc Pika list in general, are like really struggle to set up sometimes. Sometimes they just go start Pika, draw, pass, like pretty often, it seems. It's still very possible for them to come back from a weak start, just simply because Lightning Attacker is very good versus Palkia and really scary for Palkia. So you have to keep that in mind. And bossing up that Pika V, like gatekeeping the Pika V so it can't evolve into Pika V Max, is good. But they do set up, however, things can get really tough. Greninja is pretty useful in this matchup to KO both a Pika and Arceus at the same time. But because, remember, you have to remember Flying Pikachu prevents damage from basics when attacks, so if you want to hit it with Greninja, you have to boss something on that bench to clear the basic preventing effect. Echoing Horn is also a really good tech for this matchup. And of course, I'm going to mention it again because the episode is just amazing. If you want to hear more about this matchup, goes into the Lake of Rage episode. Final matchup I have is Reggies or Reggies. And the Reggie matchup is based on exploiting the fact that they need a choice belt to want to kill your Palkia VSTAR with Regieleki. The Regieleki from Evolving Skies only does 120 damage, which is weakness 240, and they need a choice belt to hit the 300 with weakness to knock out your Palkia VSTAR. And that's why Tool Jammer is in my list. It's really, really good versus the Reggies. Cheryl is also very good in this matchup because what you can do is you can share the Palkia with Tool Jammer and then Star Portal back on. So if you set up a Palkia, you attach Tool Jammer, you attack, that's one prize, and then it gets hit, you Cheryl, that's another prize, and then it gets hit again for not a knockout because you still have the Tool Jammer on it. That's 3 prizes. That means that the single Palkia VSTAR with the Tool Jammer and the Cheryl can take 3 prizes, which, as long as you don't have Manaphy, or as long as you have Manaphy in play, to prevent like any extra prize being taken from like the sniping of the Regieleki's attack, should be enough to win. And on top of that, Roxanne and then Temple Sinnoh is really, really powerful versus the Reggies because Temple Sinnoh basically shuts down their entire deck, making it so they can only attack with Regigigas. Even that's pretty hard because Twin Energy gets touched off as well. So Roxanne Temple of Sinnoh is really, really good. I do have the Dragon Sword on the Regidrago to draw out of it, but that's just 4 cards. They're going to have 4 cards to try and draw out of Roxanne Temple of Sinnoh, which can sometimes just shut down their whole deck and make it just basically give you a free turn, which is what you're looking for, because a free turn versus a single price deck is absolutely massive. Also, a lot like Luna Rock, if you pull off like the Cheryl Jammer combo on and attack every turn, Reggie is pretty free. And that's it. If you have any more questions, I'll do my best to answer them in the comments if you want to go ahead and ask them. And I really hope that this helped or you enjoyed this, even if you don't want to play Palkia or want to play against Palkia. Hope this was at least kind of interesting. I really enjoyed writing this. That's my first like kind of scripted video I've actually done. But yeah, let's do it for the video, guys. If you guys liked it, don't forget to leave a like, and I'll see you.